members of Demonologists. Well, there's two of us, but we do have
the
Alicia
other
Marco
two
Carlson as well. She's our manager, but it is the duo here as well. So, Carl.
This is the man's cave tonight.
This is the man's cave tonight. We are not at Johnson Historical Society like usual. Our lovely, we don't have a television behind. Oh, whoa! What is that?
Oh,
How did those get there?
You brought them in, didn't you? Your son brought them in. Okay, we'll be straight now.
We will. Those are not haunted dolls. Well, they could be.
It might be by the end of the night.
They could be by the end of the night. Hello, Candace. Hello, Linda. Could you guys please like, share, and of course, the most important thing with this discussion is ask questions.
Oh yeah, because that keeps the conversation generating, and you might introduce some new concepts, something we hadn't thought about bringing up, and you might have a very interesting question or your own experience you want to share.
Most definitely.
Oh yeah, we're here to talk and listen.
So, we'll be honest.
Okay, that's a fresh start.
We'll be honest here. Basically, we'll be honest here. Basically, this discussion came about on the fact that something just recently happened to the paranormal field. This will not be drama-induced. This will not have any discussion involved with that predicament. But we will bring that doll into play. We will talk about...
It's a controversial issue, but we did not create the controversy. The controversy is there.
It is there. And we are going to approach it because people did approach us, asked our questions on dolls. Carl also did write a book that has a chapter called Beware Those Dolls, or Beware the Dolls, right?
Yep. Beware those dolls.
So we wanted to hit on the topic as a special edition Sunday version of Duo Demonology, and we wanted to talk about the recent involvement of Annabelle within the paranormal culture.
You've heard that name, Annabelle.
Yes, definitely. But we will not just be talking about Annabelle. We'll be talking about and discussing about other haunted dolls, effigies, which is a term probably most people do not know of.
Effigy?
Yeah.
To burn someone in effigy is to make a likeness of them and let that be consumed or something. Or to create, just a statue, a likeness is an effigy. Effigy implies that there is a spirit in it because it has been carefully crafted as a likeness.
Not necessarily always a spirit either.
A spirit in a very general sense.
Yes, general sense, yeah. Like a voodoo doll, perfect example of an effigy.
You don't have one over there, do you?
I do not, unfortunately. So, Carl, with this topic, and somebody that has been in the field for 47 years, have you come across objects that would be touted as haunted? Specifically, maybe a doll. You have a chapter, so I'm assuming you do have a story about a doll.
I don't want to talk about it.
You don't want to talk about it?
No, I do. I'm just trying to play hard to get. I found what you could call a voodoo doll, one of those effigies. I found that over a holding crypt, a keep, in a country setting. Now, in this historic cemetery, that was, I can call it a voodoo doll. It was obviously there to represent somebody, and I think they left it out in the elements so that it would waste away, and in magic theory, the person that represented would waste away as well. That must have been the reason it was there. Now, I picked it up not knowing what it was, but I didn't go, whoa, and drop it. It's just, it's a doll. It was interesting. I turned it over, but I left it in place to complete the working that they intended.
Definitely.
So, yeah, I did find a voodoo doll. Are voodoo dolls always a bad thing, though? Because we've been doing some research, and we thank Alicia Marco Carlson for bringing that article to us.
Definitely.
That voodoo dolls weren't always a bad thing. They could be used for healing. And, they could be used for health. I mean, they represented the person, so whatever state you wanted that person to be in, that's what the doll magically could imbue in magic theory.
Yeah, definitely. And a lot of people misunderstand where the ideas of human or basically haunted dolls or human-infused dolls or effigies. It's really old. It's not really from the cultures of Robert the Doll, Annabelle. It's not from a lot of these things that we take.
Yeah, that wasn't invented recently.
It was not invented recently.
No.
One of the things that Elise gave us, and of course I actually heard about it, and thank God Elise refreshes our memory sometimes because, like anybody, we're human. We have so much that races through our brain. But there was a voodoo doll in Ancient Egypt, what was it, 3rd and 4th century?
3rd and 4th century AD, which would put it in the 200s, 300s, around the time of the Emperor Constantine, and the revival, revision of
Christianity.
Christianity emerging from the Roman culture,
So,
through the Roman culture.
but that effigy wasn't meant for bad. It was, what was it for? It was for love, right?
Yes, this was a love spell. This was, love magic. You think of voodoo doll, and it's pierced. It has 13 piercings in it. So you think naturally, oh, this person must have suffered an awful demise. But it's actually to promote fecundity, to bring out, sexual fruition and
pleasure.
Sexual pleasure and all that. That was its purpose. It's doesn't look like it's very pleasurable because it's skewered in a lot of places, but
well, even too, the Hindus had a lot of rituals too involved with the Kama Sutra that would deal with effigies as well. Kama Sutra is a book of sex, but they would actually
one of your early readings was it?
Oh, I love that reading, but they had effigies involved as well. They had dolls involved with the idea of Kama Sutra because of the idea
again this representation of a person, the effigy, treat that effigy as you want the person to respond. And they were like sensitizing it by inserting in that Egyptian effigy, that doll. They're inserting these pins or nails, figurative nails, to open up those portals, those channels, and let the magic come in, let the power, the energy come in.
Yeah, like a voodoo doll, like Haitian voodoo, most people would know of.
That's when we think of the Haitian culture, when we think voodoo doll, Verdun and voodoo.
Yep.
Same thing.
But one's a religion, one's an ideology, kind of like how you would say Buddhism is a philosophy.
Yes.
Or idea. There are differences between voodoo and Haitian voodoo. They're very similar,
in that
though.
sense, like when I say same thing, I mean they take the same approach.
Well, yeah, and then a lot of people don't realize. I know this has
their
nothing
liturgies,
to do.
if you will, are somewhat different.
Well, the voodoo, they actually believe in God. They have a lot of Christian bylaws within their
what's
belief
the source?
systems.
Yeah, Christianity combined with the African beliefs and
African
synthesized.
mythologies, and basically, one of the things that we want to say about voodoo dolls right now, and as we talk about effigies, this will get into like Annabelle and Robert the Doll, which is kind of a certain different aspect of a haunting or idea of what we're dealing with when it comes to the object, because even though that effigy in Egypt was meant for love, there is still ideas of ritual involved with binding something to an inanimate object. But I want to get to the point of voodoo dolls. Everybody thinks of the pin needle as like some poking device to hurt somebody. But in reality, the original idea of it, like you said with 13 pins, was a sensory tool. It would be basically to pinpoint to where that person was.
It's like a metaphysical acupuncture, by proxy, acupuncture by proxy. You're penetrating vital areas of the organism, or the representative organism.
Yeah.
And opening up those channels. Yeah. That's what it's supposed to do.
So,
in case you haven't caught on, our topic tonight is dolls.
It is haunted dolls.
Haunted dolls, and can they be haunted? Is it the doll themselves that's haunted, or does somebody have to accept the belief that the doll's haunted for it to be effective? Is there power in this thing? If somebody doesn't know that's a haunted object, this doll, they pick it up, is that going to invite disaster?
Yeah, definitely. And I think in some ways you can if you allow it. But I definitely look at haunted objects in the same scope that I would look at like a house being haunted, because both are inanimate objects. Sometimes a house has living aspects of it, like wood was once living, a tree is living.
Well, yeah, it's made of basically earth materials, organic materials, or it's made, like there's mud in the brick.
Yep.
They have to bake the brick.
So
the earth substance, the wood was organic. There's still cellular material in the wood.
It still exists to this day. Yeah, it still lives and breathes. Wood can definitely go bad, of course. Yeah,
and drip sap and things.
Drip sap. So people think of that, even though it is an inanimate object, it still has spectrums of life into it. Some dolls are, of course, made out of plastic, and plastic's human-made material.
Yeah.
That would have no conscious of.
For a little while.
Oh yeah, sorry, I was.
No, that's okay.
I was feeling good, but
most
dolls don't have, in some specific needs, anything to do with life, or does it actually?
What does a doll really need?
Wait, don't some dolls have real human hair?
Yeah, the well-made ones do. The well-made ones have they have human hair, and they have like some of them, really well-made have human fingernails. You know, really expensive dolls for the wealthy people of old.
We got our first question, and remember, guys,
Never
like
too
I
soon
said,
for a question.
this topic has come from a recent debaticle. We are not going to involve ourselves in the drama, but we are going to be very honest and give you our discussion.
It's out
and
there,
opinion.
like we were saying, we didn't create it. It's out
Yeah,
there, but
yeah.
it is cogent to our discussion tonight. It makes a point about the reality of the doll. If there's a controversy surrounding a doll,
Yeah.
it's got to mean something. It
Yeah.
ties into what we're saying.
And it definitely does, and that's the whole aspect to do with demonology. We are here. We're not experts, but we are people that have taken a life oath to keep researching these topics through many different avenues: anthropology, psychology, metaphysical. So we take these studies and we approach them, and we want to approach this in a discussion format because I think it's a very eye-opening thing, because haunted dolls are very apparent, are a big part of this culture nowadays. You can go on eBay and buy a haunted doll for $13.
Yeah, authenticated haunted, right?
Yeah, right. Authenticated and haunted
That's something.
for $13.
Oh, everybody should have their haunted doll. It's only $13, for heaven's sake.
Also,
Did we answer that question? Did we address it?
no. Candace asked, "Does Robert the doll actually have an evil spirit?"
Huh. I think it's interpretative, really, as to whether Robert does or something. I think if you believe, just with Annabelle, the same thing. It's kind of sympathetic magic. What we should say, and intrinsically, is that the spirit, it's imaginal. It's what, if you think the doll is haunted, it's going to create trouble for you. If you defy it, or if you pick it up, or something, if you open its box and let it, air, they're usually in containers. But it's all psychological, psychosomatic.
Yeah.
However, we wonder if there might be some kind of association that has been built up in this object. It's so strong that somebody sensitive, especially, can pick up on it. That maybe it is truly, it has become haunted through association.
Yeah, I definitely think that, and this might blow people's expectations and not what you want to hear, and I might get flack for it, he might get flack for it, but
We'll get flack for
at
that.
the end of the day, we don't give a crap.
I just opened up to a chapter by chance. I was
Uh-huh.
going to look for it.
Where the dolls?
Yeah.
Oh, God. But I truly don't believe, I say truly, because I would never disrespect any of these dolls. I would never provocate to see if this is in actuality. And of course, there have been people that have provocated.
People have
challenged these dolls before, and there has been things. Is that coincidental? Is that because of some evil force? But in reality, as somebody, and this is where I can't choose sides, because I have respect for both people. But I've had
That's going to make you unpopular with both sides.
well,
too,
I
but you can't
had
avoid
the
that.
pleasure from Nesper and Tony Stera to
Yeah?
be
Yes, you
involved
did.
with Annabelle Comes
The
Home.
debut, the museum,
premiere
was just
for
the
it.
Warrens Museum,
And-
and he took it on the road.
And I'm very thankful for it. It was an experience that I will live and remember for the rest of my life, because it was just a cool experience. Ed and Lorraine Warren, regardless of what you think of them, and I know Carl's opinion on them, but they were still a part of pop culture, and to be able to bless the museum and bless people in front of the museum and be intertwined in that location.
Yeah, the Warrens
It's
were valuable in
interesting.
that sense, I wouldn't want it to be that the Warrens never had a career or
Yeah.
anything like that.
But one thing I will say, and I've been involved in a lot of cases. I know Carl has demolished my number of involvement in
Some of them were brief involvements.
yeah, but still in situations. And the one thing that I've always felt when it came to like an evil spirit or this demonic force was that always that uneasy feeling, that fight or flight chemical reaction that has, that response, that acute response that we have. I've always had those moments in those locations or these places with people dealing with this oppression or possession or this demonic infestation. Even though these places are blessed or these dolls are contained,
yeah, they're supposedly safe.
a lot of these dolls I've met, I've never gotten that recurring feeling that there is something evil in my presence. And I truly believe, regardless if it was binded or not, if that doll was in your presence, and if it in fact was truly demonic, then you would feel that presence. And I have never felt that presence. I know people that have claimed to, but they also probably have never dealt with a demonic case, a true demonic case that has been fully flushed out by medicine, psychology. So it's hard for me to take people's hypergullibility when involved in those situations.
I like the hypergullibility.
It really is. Hypergullibility.
Hypergullibility.
But it's hard for me to take people's hypergullibility in those situations because you are gullible. You are ecstatic to see this thing.
Impressionable.
And yeah, it's impressionable. And you've heard these stories. So it's something that plays a key confined part of your brain where it loops over and over again that you think, oh, this thing's
it
evil.
adds power to the image because in the end, in the final resolution, it's an inanimate object. You know, it's inanimate material. But we can give it a life through association. We are alive, so we imprint our life force on it.
We do. We have another question. I think it's interesting. David Fritz says, doesn't voodoo affect the astral body, which in turn has effects on one's physical well-being? Well, in reality, any ritual could have effects on your body because guess what? In Christianity, we go to mass, right? The transubstantiation, right? Is that say it right?
Yeah. Transubstantiation.
Transubstantiation.
That's what you're
See, I'm
looking for.
Catholic and I can't even say it.
Well, that's hard to rattle off.
It
If I
is.
said it 10 times fast, I'd be.
I just have. Well, I have a speech. Well, for people that always wonder, I have a speech impediment. So.
Well, you deal with it, right?
I deal with it as best as I can.
It doesn't stop you by any
But in that same token, that's a ritual. You are taking something that is perceived to have some sort of force that God is coming, Jesus is coming, and that is his, blood and body.
I
love.
You're a literalist, the Catholics.
Yeah, I love the liturgy of the Eucharist. I'm not saying anything bad about it. I'm Catholic clergy. I think the Eucharist is an important, powerful thing. But there are many concepts of ritual that says that it has due diligence or effect on your body. The Eucharist does. You're bringing the Holy Spirit within you. So in some way that has an effect on your astral body or your spirit if you believe in it.
The astral body is very malleable, but it is also distant from us. It is not our physical body. It's connected to our physical body. I don't think, in an empirical sense, that you can attack the astral body, except through higher magic, perhaps. I mean, that would be like a curse.
Yeah.
They would actually do damage to the physical body. I think there is a separation there, and the astral body is just too detached and too flimsy to make that much of a difference.
Yeah, and voodoo.
I'm sure there are some circumstances where there are exceptions.
Exceptions, definitely, and of course, doing blood ritual, blood magic, Santeria. Things like that involved a kind of a host involvement.
You haven't seen that, have you?
I have not ever done a blood ritual, thankfully. But
I've observed that.
But still, in that same aspect, there are said to be physical repercussions, spiritual repercussions. But that's not just voodoo, though. Voodoo was never created to be a malicious thing. It was actually, like we said, brought upon through positive root magic, healing, witch doctors. Everybody thinks of witch doctors that they're bad, but early demonologists were called witch doctors.
When their culture was nascent, and they're trying to establish this Haitian, subculture, the voodooism, then they are protective of themselves, and they had to generate a certain amount of fear so that people wouldn't be attacking them left and right. They had to look like a formidable force. The practitioners.
David Courier said, "Do you believe a person can curse a doll?" I guess that's psychosomatic, right? Because if you think in the same token, a voodoo doll and pinpoint was used for healing, then why can't a doll in that same retrospect, in that same mindset?
When you get into metaphysics, you get into magic, and you get into the paranormal, the overt answer is no, I don't think so. But there are exceptions. We're dealing with the mind in metaphysics and the spirit. Mind and spirit, dualism. Yeah, sometimes the impossible happens.
I definitely think so. I think it's a possibility. I have come across many dolls, worked with exiting dolls or haunted objects out of locations that I necessarily maybe didn't think they were haunted, but these people wanted them gone. So sometimes I didn't keep them. I would either bury them on holy land or get rid of them in a body of water. I don't feel like the need to keep those objects.
With the dolls. What about if it was a spirit board, a Ouija board? Would you handle it the same way?
I would dispense of it as the same way. I would either throw it in a body of water in a black bag with a ritual be done on it, a binding ritual, or I would bury it on a holy land if I had permission. Or I would give it to somebody that collects objects. There was one time I got an object from a museum. I won't say what museum, but I gave it to a person that collects these things, and his name begins with a J and his last name ends with a Z, but not the say any names or any involvements.
I'm still trying to think who this could
but
be.
I think it's possible, but I also think it's what we put into it. I think.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's what you put into it. The amount of association, the amount of interest and belief, preoccupation.
And that's the same thing with the curse and the hex. Like everybody, I'm going to put the curse on you. And you take that and you believe, oh, my curse. Like,
well, if they said it, you're cursed, that's going to have some weight to it
so,
itself.
I think it's in that same retrospect. I think it's what you put into it. I would never challenge any of these things because I'm not a challenging person, even though I'm wearing a UFC shirt and we can get in like the octagon right now with dolls and fighting. But in that same token of, I would not challenge. I'm very respectful. You wouldn't toss
one out the window defiantly. Ha ha! So much for you, doll.
It's like playing with fire. Because what happens if I'm wrong? What happens if I am wrong, and that this fact is a possibility?
I feel utterly detached from this belief in the power of dolls. But suppose some jokester in the Warren's Occult Museum. In fact, some of my personal items are on display in the Warren's Occult Museum, but that is another story. Be glad to tell you that. But suppose somebody like, hey, Demonologist, here's the doll, through Annabelle. Oh yeah, you're fun.
Yeah.
But if I picked it up and said, see, no harm. I'd probably be all right. But what happens when I back into the fire hydrant? Right away, I think, oh my God, it's because I had Annabelle.
Yep.
Then something else happens. Then I got 2 flat tires on the way home.
Yeah.
Then everybody's on my case or something. It's the doll.
Yeah.
I would have to associate, and it might be.
See, I'm not throwing his name out there to badmouth him, but I think people have the same concept, and I think it's what you take it. There's a doll called Buddy the Doll out there, famously held by Chris Sanders, right? And
yeah, we saw Buddy. I
didn't
pick up Buddy, but I saw Buddy.
See, Buddy, he talks about Buddy. There's no disrespect to him, but basically there was an event that we did, and this event was basically investigation fell through because somebody got in a car accident, so the place couldn't be unlocked. So our idea was, okay, we have Matt Warner, we have Chris Sanders, we have all these people that collect these haunted objects or enchanted items, whatever you want to call them. I said, why not put them in a room? And of course it is dangerous, and maybe people will say, why did you do that, James? Why did you come up with this idea? Or why did you all agree to that idea? I said,
you put all the dolls together?
We put every haunted object in a room, and we started asking questions, seeing if we could make communication. And one of the things I did, and it's not to challenge, it wasn't to be disrespectful, it was not ego, but I held the doll. I held Buddy the doll in my hand, and one of the things is if you touch the doll, your relationship will end. Unfortunately, I don't know how many months later it was, but my relationship did end. And every time I see Chris says, oh, you touched Buddy the doll. I have no belief that had anything to do with the doll. There was issues before I touched the doll, and they just seemed to not progressively get worse. It would just seem it was a better thing to separate because sometimes in a relationship you're not happy and you exit out of the relationship.
There's positive in the end. Now, should you thank Buddy if you meet somebody else that you're more compatible with? Thank you, Buddy.
Thank you, Buddy. But in that same token, I've had that experience where people said, oh, you touched your doll. What happened to the relationship? And I always have to explain, I really, truly do not believe it was the doll. And some people will say, yeah, James, it was the doll. But that's their personal opinion. I never dealt with a paranormal phenomenon. I never dealt with any doubting myself. It was just an admissible agreement that said we're going to separate. We're not going to be in this relationship anymore. So in that same format, it's how you take it. We have a lot of questions.
Yeah, let's try to get to some of these.
Oh, Elise gave a great statistics.
Oh, I'd like to hear.
There are 472 haunted dolls for sale on eBay.
There are 472 haunted dolls for sale on eBay.
Chelsea Courtney said, what doll have you been around that gives off the darkest energy? None.
No, they don't. I've been very sentimentally attached to dolls that were, in fact, there's one that does haunt me, but for all different reasons. It's not metaphysical. It's because I don't have access to the doll. It was my grandmother's, and just a beautiful porcelain doll. I could see the doll, I suppose, but I'm afraid by now it's been lost or put away in storage where I can't access it. So, in that sense, the doll, because it was treasured by somebody whom I treasure, then that's a potent figure to me. But as far as negative energy from one, I don't think I've felt that.
Candace asks again. Jeez. No, I didn't lose it. I lost it.
I'll lose that question.
Oh God, I lost it.
Let's talk about those 470 dolls, haunted dolls that are for sale on eBay. Now,
Go ahead.
I wonder if they lose their power
Candace said, "What do you think the Haunted Doll Island?" Well, on our poster that I made up for our special edition,
I like that poster.
the Haunted Doll Island
Island
is perceived in that picture because it is one of the most famous known islands of haunted dolls. And in that same retrospect, I would put a bunch of dolls on an island too, and
to keep them at a distance, or
keep them at a distance. So I think that there is an alternative thing on an island. Maybe there's something hidden there. People don't want people to go on that island for. But if I was to hide something, I'd put a lot of creepy dolls.
If you have a
too.
doll that you feel is hexed, has some power, and you want to get rid of it, you should give it a good home and bring it to that island.
Could you imagine
among its
like?
friends?
Could you imagine Oak Island? They find like
Oak
an
Island.
area of Oak Island with a bunch of dolls, right? Stay away from it. It's cursed.
That would be one of the outstanding episodes, wouldn't it?
Yeah, if you look at anthropology and you look at the study of human civilization and locations where places were cursed, usually this a notion of, is that the word? A notion?
A notion, an idea, concept?
Yeah, concept.
N-O-T-I.
Yeah. So there's been many.
Well, I'd like to know where you got the notion.
There's many.
I'd like to know where you got the notion. To rock the boat.
Rock the boat, baby.
Rock the boat, baby.
You're
You're silly.
But and throughout many different cultures, there has been this place that was cursed. And we've come to find out through many of these speculations and, of course, civilizations disappearing, that these places, these stories of these cursed areas, were in fact because they were a place that people didn't want certain people to go. They were hiding things there, maybe treasures. So for some, it would draw them to see if this land is cursed. And for others, for
It
most
was a
people,
forbidden land.
it
for
would
others,
it would
yeah.
negate them from going. It would like, oh, I don't want to go there.
Think of Sable Island. Off the northwest coast of Newfoundland
Yep.
is Sable Island, and that is known as the Island of Misery because so many people have gone there. There are over 300 shipwrecks there.
Yeah.
So many people have gone there looking for treasure and lost their own lives or been very disappointed because they didn't find anything. But it's a fascinating place. Now that was forbidden land, Sable Island.
Yeah.
Of course, you can't just go there
So-
and visit either.
I don't know if Dan Revere meant to say this, but I also think it has a lot to do. He made it, him
You're
and
talking
Eric.
about last night.
Eric Vitale and him made a video last night talking about maybe certain things, how he got involved with the Warrens. So this has a lot to do with that question. Well, this is the thing. Take the Annabelle doll and the story of the man with the motorcycle accident. According to the story, his girlfriend said that they had been laughing about the doll when they crashed. The question is, was he really paying attention to the road if he was laughing and joking without being disrespectful to him? Well, in Dan Revere's video last night, and I wasn't there, they said the motorcycle driver was going 92 miles per hour.
You're inviting disaster then, you know.
And inviting disaster at that point was the doll or was the 92 miles per hour and the joking and laughing on the bike. So that just makes me kind of point, what was it? That's for you to determine and decide, I guess. Hypergullibility. Mama loves that word.
Yeah,
I don't
hypergullibility.
even know if it's a word. I know it is a word, but
Well, what about when James Dean crashed his Spider and, like he died? What was he? James Dean, I think he was 24 when he died.
he was very young.
Yeah, and so there's mystique grows up about it, like he had to die young because he, burned out his life.
Oh, yeah.
But he was driving pretty fast.
Zan C said, can you guys talk about if a spirit attached to a doll can make contact or possess someone telepathically through videos, pictures, and are just standing in front of the doll in close proximity?
In an objective sense, I really don't think so, no.
No,
In
me
my
neither.
opinion, no, I've never heard of it. I don't think it can work that way.
Yeah.
There has to be some element of association where people are aware the doll is supposedly cursed.
Yeah.
Has a spirit to it.
Well, I think she's saying that she does believe that the doll has this ability to do so, and it's contacted her. Do you think that's possible? I guess you can't say if you're dealing with it personally.
Yeah.
It's not out of the realms
I'd
because
like
you're
to
dealing with
say
it.
no.
Yeah, but
However, I have heard of times where a doll that has a presence to it, it moves itself around and is found in different rooms, and people attest that they did not put it there, and I believe it.
Yeah.
I believe it.
Well,
I've even experienced.
Well, I had experience at Wildwoods, and this is my only time that I ever experienced a doll moving or something involved with a doll. This is Wildwood Sanatorium. I was with Eric Knapp. I think Sean Michael Sullivan was there, and a few other people were there at Wildwood Sanatorium. And they have a doll room there. And
Doll room.
we were going in and out the whole time. want to tend to lead that eventually it was coincidental, and
Yeah.
that this occurred because of movement, and sometimes it doesn't take like that split of a second for something to move. But we were asking questions in the room, kind of buckling and moving a little bit, like the recorders and EMF, and we have it on video, mind you. But all of a sudden, this one doll that Eric's talking to just slides right off the chair by itself. Was the doll haunted, or was it through physical interaction with that room over and over again?
And you guys are walking in and out, you're jarring it. The gravity is a constant force. Gravity is like little fingers tugging constantly. You know, and you can put it different ways, you know. Oh, the doll slid off the chair? Or you can say, oh, the doll slid off the chair. Right, you know.
And I say it that way because, yeah, it could have been a paranormal occurrence. It could have actually been something moving the doll, maybe the doll itself. But I tend to believe that the movement occurred, and it was cool. It was an impressive situation because it went to our question. So that was my only time with a doll ever really truly moving.
At least you got a story to tell about it now, huh?
I will say though, and this is not challenging, but I think as Demonologists, a research unit, and our ability.
That's what we are, a research unit. That's what, you know, we're not just driving out demons and learning what we can.
But the one thing that we want to do as demonologists, we want to make this a more apparent, a more respected field, maybe more involved with academia than it is currently so. And one of the things that I want to bring to you guys, if you believe you have a haunted doll, a haunted object, specifically a doll because this is the topic, contact us. We will investigate.
We are applied demonologists.
Yeah.
We will go to the field. We will, if we can, make it to your home or, you know, wherever the site is. You want to show us your object or something.
And if even if you're not having issues with it, and you believe it's haunted,
we'll give them issues.
We won't give them issues. We'll take the item to a neutral environment and we'll
dispose of it maturely and like practically.
Yeah. But what I'm saying though too is if you want us to investigate it, we will.
We're not just limited to you know, demons and the dark.
Tammy Post says, "Do you believe jewelry can have an attachment?" I think in a sense where that it is, if it belonged to somebody, it could possibly have that attachment in that sense. Maybe it brings and invokes emotion, invokes memory of them.
Can for me, yeah. Perhaps the most famous example, what she's citing, would be the Hope Diamond.
The Hope Diamond.
All the disasters and downright catastrophes that surrounded that. Coincidence? It does seem to be more than coincidence.
Well, even though I don't believe it was ever on that ship, it did affect the Titanic.
I think that was the coup de mer, you know, the heart of the sea.
I thought that was the Hope Diamond in that movie. No.
No, it wasn't supposed to be. It was something. It was a fictitious stone.
But I think it was based on the Hope Diamond, wasn't it? Though the concept of it was.
I think it was inspired by the Hope Diamond, you know, because they look similar. You know,
they did.
Diamond. Remember, Rose tossed that down into the ocean where the Titanic ruin was.
I see it as him being a laugh in the face of danger kind of guy. I don't think there was a connection. Opinion, of course, saying about the motorcycle accident.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's like other curses throughout history, including the Hope Diamond. Once that association is established, it's hard to shake. You know, I think it really was because of his frivolity with the doll Annabelle.
Yeah.
But I think he set up a lodestone in his mind. I think part of his mind, you know,
and
told him the disaster would follow him.
You'll like this one. I like this one too, but because there's so many misconceptions. Chelsea asked, "Do you believe a divot box can trap an energy? And if you haven't experienced any dolls with negative energy?" Well, like I said, I've been around dolls that have been quoted to have demons in them. I didn't believe it. I should not say use the word believe it, but I don't think there's demons in it. And that's my opinion. Some people...
You don't know until you open it. Right?
Yeah, definitely, I guess. But I don't think... I don't know.
Now, does Chelsea, does she know what a Dybbuk box is? Does she been around one? I happen to know that Chelsea has held a Dybbuk box. I didn't say she opened it. She's held one.
But the thing is with the Dybbuk box...
She shared.
The problem with Dybbuk's is, in Judaistic belief, it is not a demon. It is a lost soul that possesses because they usually died of something tragic, and they tend to be negative because of the negative depths that they.
It's looking for a home.
It's looking for a home, so they become very possessive, either through people or possessing an item through their belief systems. Can a Dybbuk box trap an energy? As the same thing we've been saying, it's possible if you put that perception into it. I think that people perform rituals and bind things into items, but I also think we don't understand the true realms of the things that go beyond the physical eye, and I think sometimes it's just what we want to hear, and that works for us. How about you? What's your take on that?
About the authenticity, about
Dybbuk boxes or trapping energies in boxes, because you got to remember the Dybbuk box was not necessarily a thing in Judaistic belief. It was created by a guy and sold it on eBay. We must remember that.
There's a long tradition of spirits being trapped in boxes, but as far as this popular Dybbuk box,
Dybbuk box.
a wine case,
It was concepted by a person based upon pop culture. People forgot that. It was sold on eBay.
That takes some of its mystique away, doesn't it?
It was sold on eBay. The first Dybbuk box was sold on eBay. So
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that is clear.
Like anything with a lot of association, like opening, like when Howard Carter, found the tomb of King Tutankhamun.
Yeah.
Like supposedly all curses flew around, and Howard Carter never suffered any ill effects, except you could say that he became so obsessed with his discoveries.
And Mama said nobody on the
Lord
couch.
Cardivan was the one who died. What did she say?
Nobody on the couch has moved yet. Well, I'm looking for one. If you guys don't have kids,
If you back up that video, if you got this,
yeah, we have recorded.
you look at that one on the right.
The monkey moves.
That has moved about 2 centimeters since we've been talking about it. And I bet you can measure
One
it.
of my most disliked people on this world.
Oh, you have the most dislike?
I don't really dislike the person, but he
too
is annoying and I have to watch him because of my kid. But one thing I want to move, so I chuck it out of this damn house, is that Blippi doll. If you've never watched Blippi in your life, that is more scary than being involved in a room with Annabelle. Watching Blippi.
But it doesn't get the same kind of press.
No, it doesn't. Well, Blippi is actually very popular.
Blippi's known.
Yeah.
Ooh, we got cookies here.
Yeah, I made cookies.
Do you want to read some of this? I mean,
Yeah, you can read.
Let me see
All
what
right,
I
before
got.
we take any more questions, Carl is going to read a part of his book.
I'll read this page.
But where are those dolls? He's going to read to you. This is like a ghost story right now at a fire.
Available through Amazon or through me, the
Mm-hmm.
author.
And if you've seen that beautiful graphic, I guess who designed that?
I had some help with that, you, my friend. Okay. Beware those dolls, part 1. There's part 2 coming up. Okay.
Yeah.
There are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy. Hamlet to Horatio from Hamlet, chapter 1, 67, by William Shakespeare. Dolls are figurines, mostly imitating humans. They come in all designs, sizes, and shapes one can imagine. There are baby dolls, animal dolls, cartoon character dolls, dinosaur dolls. Most are cute. Some can be a little scary. How about clown dolls? They are very... What do you got? Oh.
Right? This one talks, right?
Some of them have spirits in them, yeah.
Hey, I'm so happy you're here.
Oh no! It's talking to us!
Are you going to let me read my own
Sorry.
book here? Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. Many are cute. Some can be a little scary. How about clown... Now you got that thing playing in the background, yeah. How about clown... There are very few which are dreaded, and I'd like to discourse some on that variety. It connects to demonology in what should become quite obvious ways. My old pal Brian Hanwar, formerly of TAPS, the Atlantic Paranormal Society, and oftentimes regarded as the court jester of ghost hunters and Ghost Hunters International, has a downright phobia about dolls, especially clown dolls. We can't help but imbue a form which bears a face with a personality. This is the way our perception functions. It is intent of facial depiction. To a child, his or her dolls are, in a sense, very much alive. They think and they feel. See both fetish and matrixing in the glossary. You have to read the whole book to really appreciate this.
Great book.
Yeah, thank you. Now, in most cases, it would seem quite irrational to equate a common child's doll with a tool of the devil or a vessel for demons. However, a strict interpretation of a certain scripture the meaning of which we hope was more applicable for the prevailing conditions of those isolated in the isolated region and time, remote times, influence a fervent Bible literalist to take a different view of all dolls and possibly avoid viewing artistic expressions or looking at a television screen as we read in Deuteronomy. So really you couldn't get away from it. They're talking about the biblical interpretation of dolls. It's a graven image. It's an association, you know, so
definitely.
you shouldn't, looking at television would be looking at a graven image.
Yeah.
So you're looking at our images there. So
I agree.
that's wrong, it's sinful.
Okay, and soon, because of that, a very beautiful rendition of that chapter, or a few paragraphs from that chapter, we will be coming out with an audiobook. Audio through Carl Johnson's voice.
Oh, I
reading
can
the
do
book.
that thing, yeah.
We should do that.
I'll do it. I can do
David
it.
Courier
It's
asked...
300 pages.
I'm gonna answer this question, and people are gonna hate me. I apologize. And
That's
I think
part of the reason you're here, to be hated.
I know, right?
You gotta speak your mind.
David Courier said, without naming TV persons, how many do you think are over dramatic for television?
Without naming,
Without naming, if you look at, okay, so this is my problem. Everybody said, James, you're too young for this field. But the one problem is that for those people, I have connectivity to people. The past 15 years, people knowing I've done this for 15 years. Some of these people just drop out of nowhere. And if you do a little bit of research on these people that are kind of associated with the television, you'll realize a good chunk of them are actors. So
well,
are
you
they
came from an
in
acting
it?
background, you know?
Are they in it for over dramatizations? Some of them. Some of them are legitimate, and some of them are meant to document and show paranormal activity. But with anything on television, guess what? What sells and continues their series?
It is entertainment.
Ratings.
Yes, ratings. It is entertainment. Yes. You know, they say it. There's a disclaimer at the end of these shows. They all have that.
This is entertainment. Yep.
But they have to be interesting. You know, you like them or you don't. Nobody's forcing you to watch the paranormal shows.
Yeah.
I think they're pretty much all overblown, and they're not going to last long if they're not. You
Like-
know, like I mean, I find them entertaining.
Yeah, like
What can I say?
a movie that is very apparent in this is a movie called Paranormal Activity. If you actually watch that movie, like it was a true paranormal investigation, that movie would have never became a blockbuster hit. It would have been like this. This is so freaking boring. Then you wouldn't have Paranormal Activity 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever, how many came out. So there has to be a sense of entertainment, a sense of kind of urgency, and that's just television and entertainment. You know, if people want to take it as this is what paranormal investigation is, then you're not doing the research that you should be doing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, you want to get back to that. Who do you think is more overblown than?
I'm not going to name any
You
names, my
can't.
man,
No,
but
I mean, but can you do
I'm
an
just saying
impression or something?
no,
You can't even do that.
You could take it and look at it in your own perception. This is technological age, people. You know, not
I
just
think they've made it. If you can do an impression of that personage, that personality, I think they've made it. If you,
But
you can actually.
there are
That's
more
that
than
was.
libraries out there nowadays. There's so much
Yeah,
ability
so
for
much
you to
information.
learn, and you can learn from where these people come from, where their backgrounds are, what their accolades are, what their certifications are, what their degrees are. And a lot of these people, unfortunately, don't have any degrees in any scientific aspect of this field. It's either filmography, and has no connections to anything that has to do with any.
Well, yeah, such
Accolades,
credentials have
credentials.
been exaggerated and have been
Yeah.
falsified.
So-
you know that does happen, unfortunately. Why should you know? I admit I don't have any degrees. I mean, most of these I didn't find any course in my discipline, you know. But I've learned things. But yeah, it is a shame when people actually do falsify their credentials in academic sense,
Well,
because it'll catch up to you.
Yeah.
It's not that important
Mm.
to have those credentials. So why even fabricate them?
yeah, no, I think having credentials in this field
It's
is very,
good,
very
it's
important.
good to have, but it depends on your discipline and what you're.
Yeah,
you know,
definitely.
I would like to have a psychological,
Well,
degree.
I'm going
in
to psychology. I'm going
yeah.
to school for psychology in 2021.
Mhm.
And this field had a little aspect of that, but it was also like if you talk to most psychologists or people with mental health, it was because of the trauma I dealt with as a young kid, and a lot of that
Yeah.
trauma has a lot of a kind of like uplift to
Well,
why
even
they get
Michael,
involved.
modern psychology and psychotherapy has a long way to go.
Oh,
Our
definitely
standards
does.
today will seem primitive 50 years from now.
Oh, well, look at
Well,
many-
you're never going to unwrap the mind totally.
Like we
We've
said,
made advances.
Yeah, like look at say like our last show, medieval times. Schizophrenia was demonic possession, right there and then. Like they would either exercise you, and in some forms in medieval times they would kill you actually, because you were a nuisance.
So it's for your own good.
It was for your own good.
Yeah, but that's what the science, so to speak, that they had of the day. So they sought remedies; they couldn't just leave it. So they did the best they could,
Yeah.
as we are now.
Definitely,
Hopefully.
we've developed more, thankfully, but
Somewhat, yeah.
somewhat.
We got it now.
Bill Brock says, "Can any item become haunted?" Back to the yes and no. I think anything, if you like this cup right here, right? It's Zoe, by the way. She's cute. And then he supposedly says this looks like me. This is from New Girl.
Oh,
Great
really?
show, by the way.
Yeah.
I shameless plug, and I have nothing connected to New Girl.
You should be making
But-
money from that.
This cup,
Oh,
right?
Zoe Deschanel. Yeah.
Zoe Deschanel. Yep.
This is James.
That's
What is
James.
it?
What does this say?
No.
It's the freaking weekend. It is. But in the same thing, if I drink from this cup, if I drink from this cup, and I get the very bad case of the diarrheas, and I get very, very sick every time I drink out of this cup, do I tend to believe that this cup is haunted and it is doing
You're going to avoid it.
And yeah, I'm going to avoid it, right? Is it doing some effect on me? It must be this cup. It's only from this cup that I get very sick from. So I think people can put perception into any item. Yes,
Yeah, well, let me field it. I think you can imbue an item with enough power of association that for a while it becomes a battery. For a time, sensitive people can pick up on
Definitely.
it, but it will lose that power if people
Over
don't.
time.
Yeah, if people don't, know that that's supposed to be a haunted object. But I think temporarily it does become the real deal, like that Dybbuk box.
And following and Shiona, I hope I said it. We had a great conversation before this, mind you. And following on Bill's question, if not, then haunted item museums, the reactions people have are psychosomatic.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I believe so. Yes, I do believe, like I said, that
It's not a terrible thing.
no, I believe that the items can affect people. I think one problem can cause many problems. So if you're very gullible and there's this history of this item, I think it can affect you on many different levels. And I think it's just yeah.
But I think intrinsic to that is a belief that the item is
It's
haunted.
haunted.
You've heard it. You may not even buy into it, subscribe to haunted objects, but if you heard it is, that creates a lodestone.
Yeah.
There's going to be a certain amount of some subconscious dread about it.
And that's why people take back to the motorcycle accident. Instead of 92 miles per hour and laughing and joking while driving a motorcycle, which is dangerous, driving motorcycles in itself is dangerous. Instead of those two things, people always jump to because he challenged the doll. Everybody always goes to jump to that.
If it didn't happen to him that night, it might have been another night.
Yeah. But would it have actually ever happened? If he was actually, let's say, driving a car, not going 92 miles per hour.
Now, say I were to take this Annabelle doll. What do you think, James? I take it out of its case because they got this fancy label on it.
Which-
Do not remove.
Which I will say Dan Rivera did a great job building the new case. It is a beautiful case, great work, good woodworking,
Yeah.
and
He makes some good materials.
they've taken the precautions in case like haunted items.
He makes spirit boards and Ouija boards and
Dan Rivera doesn't. You think of Danny Perez.
Oh, that's.
Dan Rivera is a member of Nesper. He
Oh,
created
I know who it is.
he created a new case for Annabelle.
Yeah, my brother was a member of Nesper going back decades now.
Sorry, you getting chat messages over here. Bill Brock said, if items were possessed like these folks say they are, places like the Haunted Museum of Zach should be holding enough energy to open portals and.
Well, yeah, you would think so. There's a caveat right there. How come these places aren't,
Yeah, and like I said, to these places that I've been,
thoroughly haunted?
and I've been involved with some, I've had the pleasure, and this is not the boast, but I've had the pleasure to go to a lot of the places in this country that are claimed to be haunted. Some of the most high thrilling places people wish they could go, and I've been involved in association with a lot of these objects that people have quoted to be some of the most haunted objects in the world. I never felt anything bad. And people can say, oh, well, the items were blessed, and there's this recurring ritual that happens every month. But you could do a blessing in somebody's house, a demonic infestation, and guess what? That blessing doesn't work. You know why? Because those people aren't willing to take the feedback And maybe the people that do own the museum correlate to that feedback and control it. But I also think, too, at the same time, the token, if you bless this item rigorously, why is it still part of the item?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah,
I know
why
they're
is it-
binding it technically, but why would you want to bind a demonic force in an item? Wouldn't you want to
If it makes you feel more comfortable about
Would
it.
you want to banish it? I know, right? So
I would think the best, bind it would be so it can't come after you. You keep it isolated,
Yeah.
and then you get into the Dybbuk box.
But then, in the same token of the time, do we really? I know it's. I think a lot of people say higher power works through us. I tend to do agree with that. Well, why would even higher power want to put a demonic entity into a doll?
Let's say you have what's authenticated as a Dybbuk box, and in that it's old.
Yeah.
It's from the early 1900s.
Yeah.
So it's authentic because it's old. And then you put Buddy the doll into that Dybbuk box. Of course, you have to open it to do that. You stuff him in there. You seal it with wax. You bury it in a churchyard, a historic churchyard. Now, is that going to give us some power?
And
If you know what it is, if you know it's there, yeah, when you drive by, you're going to be thinking of it.
And then, sorry, Kyle, it was not Sean Sullivan. It was Kyle Palmer that was with us at Wild Sanatorium. Totally forgot, brother. Sorry. And Chelsea Gill was there. I remember
you
doing
cleared it up.
No, I had to clear it up. Sorry, Kyle.
That's right.
She said to Bill, well, I think Zach would probably suggest his museum has the capacity that you want.
Well, I would like to visit it and know. It's do I get overwhelmed while I'm there? Do I really feel a power there? Perhaps I do.
But if you go in that perception that that is a possibility, how can you negate to the fact that it's not just your mental health? It's not a psychosis thing. Why it's not something playing your emotions internally?
Well, that has such a power to it. Association. If you're dreading something, I think it has power. Like say I was wearing an amulet. I wear this. I wear my nice, beautiful cross.
So is it?
It's very soothing to me. I like its weight. I like its feel.
Yeah.
I like its source.
Yeah. So Zanzi, and like I said, some of these things will be unpopular to the common people because guess what? Unfortunately, there's so many misconceptions. This is a pseudoscience, the paranormal field, but there are things that we can take through that have been documented by scientists and theorists in controlled environments where they have taken items, researched these items, they've researched ghosts, and they've come up with natural conclusions to why these things occur.
You mean explainable?
Explainable things. So Zanzi says, so you're saying spirits cannot telepathically communicate with humans. We did not say that.
We didn't say that.
We said, we did not say
I
that.
believe a spirit can telepathically communicate with a
Yes.
person. They have an energy to them.
Yeah.
They have even a cognizance to them.
But
at
she
least
says,
for a while.
but she says, why not through the doll?
Well, there you go. It's not the doll that has the power. But I have heard of a poltergeist taking a doll and moving it and making it dance.
Which, of course,
And I believe that can happen.
which a poltergeist is psychokinetic energy. We create these things. So, in that sense,
In that sense, the doll
it's us.
it's us, but the doll is haunted.
yes.
Poltergeists are pretty intriguing. It's not just like biochemical energy.
Yeah.
There's bioelectric energy.
There's a certain
they're
aspect
they're
of it.
ghosts.
Yeah.
They're spooky.
They are something created, and to me, sometimes the poltergeist cases that I believe were true to form were actually some of the most difficult cases to deal
You
with.
see the movie Poltergeist?
Yes, I
The
did.
dancing dolls. That's in the clown doll. Yeah, spooky.
And if the doll has an attachment, the answer is yes. Yes, it can. Yes, it is not the doll. It's what would be encapsulated in belief what is in the doll, like we said. Hey, Carl and James. Hey, Matt. Spirits don't have rules. Spirits don't have rules, but guess what? Most interpretations of spirit are from the human psychology, the human mental health.
Yeah.
And
If there are rules, spirits are continually violating them.
They do,
They
yeah.
shouldn't harass them mentally.
but why do that?
Infirm. They shouldn't harass children, but they can. But yeah.
This is actually a good question. Gerard Simonelli, how does a doll become haunted? Why could a spirit want a doll over a person to take over? Well, some people think, especially in a doll, a lot of people tend to believe that they are spirit vessels for children. Maybe because of that. Maybe because that if a kid unfortunately perishes and it was connected to a doll, maybe there is thought that because it was so connected to that doll, like I'm not saying my son's gonna pass away, please, but my son was very intrigued with one of those objects, and in that same token, the thought pattern is because they were so familiar with that object, it retains a part of their energy. So I believe that is how some items could be technically quoted be haunted through theory. But
Well,
also,
yeah,
I
theory
think,
again, yeah.
but I also think in theory too, it also could be depending on ritual through magic. Through
Well, also, I
thought.
think that's maybe the closest the spirit, especially a demonic spirit, can get to possessing a human. Sometimes they can't really grasp a person. They've got a doll. They've got a likeness of a human.
But you gotta also remember too,
It's
though.
a surrogate for
but-
a time.
But a demonic entity does not possess a doll. See, that's a
No, they can.
they
give
attach. They
Yeah,
to
they
theory.
can give an impression
Impression.
of being attached
Yeah.
to that doll.
Possession only
For whatever purpose.
possession only can occur through something of that something has will. An inanimate object does not have will. It does not conceive. It cannot get up every day. Does not eat. Does not go to work. A doll does not do that. It just sits there.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
They don't usually do much.
There's a museum in, I believe, Germany that is full of items that kill people from swallowing them. This is from Bill. My question is, why aren't those items incredibly possessed or haunted? I mean, they look literally like someone's life. That's an effigy, right?
Yeah.
So,
Well,
effigy.
look, they're in a case. They're in a display case.
Yeah.
People go there daily.
Yeah.
They don't suffer ill effects, but they're fascinated by it
Yeah.
because of the association.
And it killed people, right? So people would think that, okay, this has some negative aspiration to a negative. I can't think of the word. What am I thinking of? Negative, like containment to it, like because it killed somebody, it has all that negative trauma involved with it.
Well, it has the association.
Association,
Yes.
yes. So that's a good question. Why isn't that place
It becomes a
haunted?
proxy to the.
Because maybe people's perception
what
of that
happened.
is that these items aren't haunted, and that's the reason that.
Well, if people weren't afraid of them, the museum wouldn't sell very many tickets.
Yeah,
Right? You know,
that's true.
they wouldn't like kind of. This is weird. I don't know if we should be in here. That draws people
Mhm.
in. I'd like to go to that museum.
Yeah, in Germany. Yeah,
I'd
definitely.
like to ask somebody to go with me. We'll see.
You don't. So Zanzi's telling us. Elise said do a demonology@gmail.com. So Zanzi is.
That was pretty fast. Did you want to slow down and say that?
Well, people can read it.
Yeah, as long as she's got it up there.
So Zanzi is in a full disagreement with us, which is great.
Oh.
You don't have to keep your hands off a doll with an attachment for the spirit to telepathically get into your head or make a connection.
Mm-hmm. Now we know better.
Now we know better. Thank you, Zanzi.
It's possible. I mean, you know, when we're into this field, we see so many things that contradict
Yeah.
logic.
Yeah.
You know, I think, and yet I believe in the power of a curse. I sound like that's a
Okay.
contradiction because I believe somebody can be cursed and they don't necessarily have to know about it.
Yeah, definitely.
But you're working with magic then, it's a force.
Yeah. Well, it's like the power of prayer. You
You
know,
don't
you don't,
necessarily have to believe in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
people
It
pray.
helps if you believe
yeah.
in prayer, you know, like
Yeah.
of course for the prayer.
Well, but people like I do believe in the power of prayer, but I also think that is also has to do with something with the kind of the feedback, like the people and support, and I think that good mindset and
Yeah, I'll do a complete turnaround. I have worked magic without telling the object, the person that I was working
Yeah.
magic on them. I mean, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
You know. But yeah, you can, you know, from a distance or remotely do a working that involves other people.
oh god.
What?
So I knew
What?
that. Oh, I forgot. There was another doll. Susan said. Susan
What
said.
doll did you forget?
Oh, right. You hear the question. What about the doll at the lookout house during the table tipping? She leaned over to say goodbye to me.
my
How did that
word,
happen,
yeah.
James? Was there Carl in the other room?
I was there. There's a story. I don't know how much you want to tell.
So we did a table tipping session at the lookout
Yes.
house, and supposedly they had this.
We didn't perform it. We were
We
participants.
were participants in it. And supposedly this is Raggedy Ann doll that has a spirit attached to it. I will not discredit any of their opinions on this, but I also definitely understand how table tipping can be done. And I'm not saying it was done maliciously or purposely to fool people, but there are things within the human body that we do when during table tipping that if you actually observe table tipping and any divination tool usage, the human body has a lot to do with how those tools interact. You're actually doing a lot more of it than you think you are due to this
And
suspense.
supposedly the spirit has an attachment to that doll, likes the doll,
Doll,
and
yeah.
is using that to bring itself
Yeah,
world.
like to be honest with you, for people that are listening, I actually slept with the doll.
I was going to reveal that if you didn't.
I actually slept with the doll and I did not wake up. Nothing occurred. Did not feel evil. I did not even feel any kind of sense off that doll. And I don't believe I'm a clairsentient, clairaudient. But like I said, being that close to the doll, I basically coddled the doll. I cuddled it because, I was sleeping. I woke up cuddling the doll. And
You woke up cuddling?
I did,
That's
yeah.
cute.
It was really cute. But in that same token, I never dealt with any paranormal experience after that table tipping session and before that table tipping session to do with that doll. So that's my explanation. I think it was the
Somebody more vulnerable to that, somebody more open and more sensitive might
have had an experience sleeping with the doll, but I sure did not. Mood rings, old. That's actually
Ooh.
mood rings. Yeah, that's a good one.
Did you ever have a mood ring? I had a few.
Yeah, I had a few too.
I don't know where they went. Yeah, mood rings are fun. Remind me of the 70s.
David Courier, a Reiki master's lower form of a better use of words, a lesser demonologist. Reiki master is not a demonologist. See, this is where people don't understand demonology or demonologist. We're not healers. We're not exorcists. God damn it! And this is not towards you, Dave, but this is towards the whole spectrum of people. Sorry, Carl. But a demonologist is a person that studies the wicked and
Yeah, a demonologist is someone who studies the lore and cultural tradition of wicked spirits. Studies there,
Yes.
how you specialize,
Yes.
what you do with it.
And we apply it as applied
Individual.
demonologists. The studies that
Yes.
we've researched, we've been involved with, the cases that we've done together separately, we take that and we combine it and we look at it and apply it to understanding what the characteristics could be so that we can bring it to possibly either a psychotherapist that can determine that this person truly does have something psychologically wrong with them, or we bring it to somebody like an exorcist that in fact they are dealing with a entity. But we're not like Reiki masters. We don't heal people. And even though I'm a deacon and I can do blessings and deliverances, that's not what I do as a demonologist. It is to go into a case and dissect and do everything possible to make sure nothing is natural going on, then go to the preternatural. That's what a demonologist is. So a Reiki master is not a lesser demonologist. There's no connectivity at all. All right? Do you agree?
Yeah, there could be a demonologist who practices Reiki.
Reiki.
I have not met one, but there
Me
could
neither.
be. But I mean, it's not intrinsic to being a demonologist or being a Reiki master. I would not call them. They may deal with influences, but I wouldn't call them spirits or demons.
So Bill actually, and you can use, and Bill brings this up. You can use the word that you're about to use or we're about to say, but it could be thought form, it could be poltergeist. There's many interpretations of it. But Bill says, I think what you guys are describing is something more topo-like. I think you are giving this life to these dolls. A tope is a thought form, so it's in the same concept of, do you create that thought that this doll has this entity? There's a possibility that something can.
I'll allow for that. There's so many strange things in this world that maybe you could create a thought form that has the presence and the power to manipulate a doll, but that would be very limited, I think.
And Shiona
If it could happen.
actually perfectly summed it in a better summary than we did. But it is the act of swallowing of those items that caused the death, not the object.
Right.
So
Somebody
that
had
should-
of their own volition.
Yeah, their
Law
own
of
will.
intent, somebody had to swallow that thing, and it just didn't react well. Didn't go down right. What else you got?
Zanzi, how do you think spirits enter our world, our dimension? Do you think a glass case or not touching a doll is going to stop a spirit? Like I said, they have no rules. No. I think what Dan Revere and Nesper did with Annabelle, of the concept of putting the doll in holy water soaked wood with glass and prayer cards on it, helps the ideologies that you are protected, but I don't think
this one that they are protected. Yes.
I think it's a conventional thing. I think it's how you look at it, how you interpret it.
Yes. Well, you can close a door and tell a spirit not to come through that door, and the spirit will have difficulty going through that door because they think in terms of 3 dimensions.
Invitation. Yeah.
Yeah. They, if they see, it's easier for. Why do spirits see conduits like wells and tunnels? it's easier for a spirit to go around something than through something.
Yeah, yeah.
You're talking about something that's basically non-physical,
Yeah.
but somehow, and my experience has borne this out in case histories, that is, if you close the door and say, don't come through that door, it's difficult for the spirit to get through. It may be like telling a child, you can't come through that door,
Yep.
even though they know they can walk through
And
it.
that comes to a lot of the lore, which they are demonic in lore. Vampires, like we talked about earlier, they can only come in with it.
They have to be
invitation.
invited, like
Yes.
a demon. The vampire needs to receive an invitation
Yes.
to cross a threshold and enter an abode. Traditionally.
Zanzi, just like using Ouija boards, crystal balls, mirrors, anything that can come through, of course, spirits can come through. There are many ways they come through and make contact with us. Once again, like psychomantanium, right? This is basically a mirror, a scrying mirror in a dark room.
I used that successfully once.
Successfully, yeah. So I'll use this in the same realm.
And then that it seemed to create
It creates
cure
something.
it cured the problem.
Yeah,
Chris Fleming and I did that in New Orleans.
But a perfect example of this would be Bloody Mary. Remember saying Bloody Mary in a dark room at a mirror?
Did you ever do that? It's more a girly thing.
I did do it.
Yeah.
But once again, you're using these objects. You're creating a moment of suspense, and one thing that's going to happen in that moment of suspense is your brain functions are going to kick in, and you are going to fool yourself. I truly, truly believe this. I don't say these things
If you go
to be
through the trouble
mean,
of doing the ritual.
but 15 years ago, I was super gullible. I was
Hyper-gullibility!
Gullibility! But I was hyper gullible. 15 years
Hyper-gullibility
ago.
of the musical.
Like, I did not believe God existed, and I really wanted to disprove spirits could not exist because I think that could.
Well, it sounds like you were a super skeptic.
I was a very super skeptic, but the thing is, I'm still gullible. You know, something little happened, like this cup turned over, like if I was at a haunted location, I'd say that was a ghost. 15 years later, I've observed things in a physical situation. I've made a hell of a lot of mistakes, and things I wish I didn't make mistakes on, especially dealing with
Well, that's
people.
what they call mistakes.
But yeah, definitely. But in that same token, I've also done a lot of research in anthropology, psychology, how we can interpret things differently, the interpretations throughout human civilization to the similar thing. And yeah, these things have been around for a very long time, an idea, and they have changed in some form.
You want to talk about, remember you mentioned vampires?
I did, yes.
And that's associational. I mean, whether there was any
Real vampires.
real vampire,
Yeah.
like reality to that belief. Today, this day, is the 140th birthday of Mercy Lena Brown, who was
Wow.
interred in Exeter. This is her
Yeah.
140th.
And she died of
birthday.
tuberculosis. She was not a vampire, people.
You have to ruin it for everybody. don't
I'm
you?
sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
You have
That does a lot of good
See,
now.
the one thing, and we're losing viewership. I think it's because of that. But, but the one thing that I see in this field is we want there to be ghosts. It isn't the whole point of investigating to disprove or prove it. So we shouldn't be gullible while doing it. If we really want to take a true investigative approach, we have to be neutral when we go into these situations.
That's supposed to be. That doesn't mean you discredit everything
Yes.
and think you're a super logician because
Yes,
you're
definitely.
skeptic. You need to be a realist, and we
Yeah.
have a realist that we know
Yeah.
and respect.
Well,
Elise is a realist.
even though it sounds like we're trouncing on these things and saying
Oh,
it does
of course
not
it might sound like
exist
that. We're giving our opinion based on our experience.
on our experiences, and of course, we're not denoting the fact that we have dealt with experiences ourselves that I truly believe that cannot be explained by modern science or modern medicine at this point in time. So I have dealt with things.
Therefore, it is magic. It is alchemy because we can't. It is paranormal.
Yes,
It's supernatural because we can't.
John A. Scott says good and evil exist. We live amongst the spirit world. I wouldn't play with any ghosts or demons. So I want to retract that statement. Good and evil exist. I do agree with that.
You're talking about apart from the human mind. You're talking about
But-
as concepts
yes.
and
But
As displacements.
in reality, good and evil truly did not exist in the way you think of it does until dualism became a popular thing. So when dualism came around, it started to be more apparent that there is a good and evil to this world. But before dualism, there were talks of it, but it wasn't as heavily within philosophy as
Well,
it is now.
I think good and evil had evolved as humans did.
Yeah.
It's been
The
just
concept
as
of
when
it.
do you call a human being? When was it a human? The Homo species. Pre-hominids.
Yeah.
When did they become kind of people? When did they have souls? When did evil start? Evil has always been synonymous with inconvenient. Like being agrarian. Say this pre-human.
Yeah.
Likes the eggs that the other pre-human has, wants those eggs, and even though the other one climbed the tree to get him,
Yeah.
goes into the cave and steals the eggs. That's evil. That's the beginning, kind
It's
of
an evil
the
intent.
evil.
That's intent. Yeah.
It's selfish. It's
Yeah.
solipsism.
Definitely.
That's the beginnings of evil. But then, when people evolve to the point where they have morality, and can make judgments and all that, when you seriously violate somebody else's rights, that is evil. And there's some acts that are, however you interpret them, they're evil. Now, can evil and good exist in the disembodied sense? Then you get into the demons and the angels. And I can't understand it, but I believe it does.
Oh, we've got over an hour. Let's catch up on these questions, and we'll be ending up soon. So this question is from a fellow demonologist, Mark Avila.
Oh, okay.
Do you believe that the increased focus on negative and dark forces is leading to an increase in demonic and dark hauntings? Because of this fascination with dark cases on TV, it seems more and more people are using Ouija boards and trying to practice witchcraft than ever before. I feel this is a rising evil around the world. I want to answer that quick. I do not think it has changed much. I think we have always been a civilization or a culture or a species.
We've always been fascinated with means of divination.
Divination.
Purport to give us answers.
Especially since ancient Egyptian times. So I think if we do focus on negative things, of course, as a collective consciousness, of course, more things will be more negatively perceived in this world, which could create more of a laws of attraction from a new thought method. Laws of attraction. If you put out negativity, that'll attract the negativity and new thought.
Right.
But the new thought. That's too funny.
The new age, the new order.
The new age, the new thought. Yeah. The new thought.
We just get to the point.
I think that it is a possibility. I think that if you focus on negativity, it's going to be more of a focal point in your life. And I think that has a lot to do with it. But we have not changed much as humans. Like we tend to believe. We look at a modern society where social media and news media is more apparent. But the world hasn't changed much with human civilization. We've been killing each other and been negative since we've been around. Some of the wars that we fought, even before any of our births, killed more people than the wars that we fought in our generation. So that tells me something. It really hasn't changed much.
I would further expound by saying that this increase in demonic activity in the cases we hear of is more symptomatic than it is causality.
Yeah.
It's a symptom of what's happening.
Yeah.
Oh, it's nonetheless real and viable, but it is symptomatic, not the cause.
Yeah, definitely not the cause. And I think
in our opinion, again.
I think it's also trauma too, So it's like a mixture. It's like a cocktail of things that you could perceive that. I truly haven't been. I don't know about you, Carl. I've been consulting on quite a few cases, but it actually has been more quiet than it has ever been for me. And I don't know if that's because maybe I'm not putting myself out there more, but I've actually been busier years ago than I am now, and I'm more perceived in the public. And I don't say that like as an ego thing or I'm like a celebrity.
Well, I think people are more looking for your room than they are you at this point, because your room has been on television.
It was on Ghost Adventures, yes, Carl. But in that same token of time, I don't know how to answer that. I think that it hasn't really changed much. I think because we are in it now, we want to perceive that it's different than it was before.
I concur with him, but allowing that maybe I don't see the forest for the trees. You ever hear that saying?
Yes.
Why don't you see the forest? Where's the woods? Well, the trees are in the way, so I don't see it. That is the woods.
Yes.
You don't see the forest for the trees. Maybe it's too obvious and too blatant, and I just don't see it.
We have a lot of questions. Holy crap.
You better get to some real important questions. We should concentrate on questions and answers.
Chelsea said, I want to read the stories about some paranormal folks going to deaths about with haunted dolls definitely make me wonder how authentic they are as an individual. LOL. Only because I'm skeptical as well. I won't answer that. Do you want to answer that one? It's more of a statement than a question.
I'll just give my own impression that dolls just don't intimidate me. Spirit boards don't bother me, Now, if I went into, like, say, there's the doll room in the Sprague Mansion in famous Sprague Mansion in Cranston, Rhode Island.
Yes,
One
which
of
is
the
right
two
down the
places.
road, actually.
Yeah. They have a doll room, 19th century dolls. They're kind of eerie looking because they're all stacked together and they have little faces. I don't know. Just on a gut level, I would feel kind of strange sleeping in a room next to them because I couldn't get away from thinking they're going to be dancing around me. But I could do it. You know, I don't think the power's in the objects. But maybe it could attract a spirit child. And that would be very eerie at night, see a little girl ghost.
And see, this is not me challenging. This would be because I would be interested. I think that if I'm in a place to investigate it, I'm going to do every approach beside being negative and challenging. I would probably sleep with all those dolls. I'd probably put them in bed with me and sleep with all of them because if I'm there at a place to have an experience and to see if these dolls are legitimate, if they truly are haunted, I would probably have some sort of entanglement with it because I want to understand if this is a true thing that occurs. Because I'm not gullible anymore. I still have some gullibility.
Well, when you're collecting
aspects.
those dolls, make sure you stop at Walmart and get your mattress pump there. Have that option.
Just pump.
Some of them might be inflated, you don't know.
So, Shiona was telling, we were talking about Nutella earlier. She said tub of Nutella, James Annitto. So, in that same retrospect, some people like Nutella and some people don't.
Oh, I want to say one more thing about dolls and the little girl ghost. The Sylvanus Brown House on Slater Mill campus was, well, it's still there. It's an 1758 house, Sylvanus Brown House, and it is apparently home to a little girl in spirit form. And one time, it did happen numerous times, but one time when a guest heard the little girl giggling, heard her voice while we were in that house, she came back, visited again, and she had a doll with her, an old-fashioned looking doll. It was Becca was the spirit, that's the name we got from EVP. And she brought that doll for Becca. That's Becca's doll. Mm-hmm. Whenever we did a ghost hunt, I used to put out Becca's doll.
Yeah. So this is a yes. I'll say yes quickly. No, actually. Question is from Timothy Morris: are evil spirits and demons the same? Do they go after children the most? Thanks. No, they're not the same, and not all the time. Demons can go after the weakest or the strongest of individuals. It's what they feel like they can target the best.
Yeah, it's individual. You know, there was a time, of course, when all evil spirits, all malicious spirits, were thought of as being demonic because they're inconvenient. So, but we categorize them differently. Spirit can be harmful, but not necessarily demonic.
Kyle Palmer says, I think it depends on the human connection between the object and whoever owned it. I have a chair on the side of the road right now that's definitely going to be haunted. Lost my mind in that chair for a couple of Friday nights. Once again, as we talked about over and over again, you can own a haunted house that's been claimed to be haunted. You go in that house, and nothing could ever happen. And then somebody else moves in after that family, and things happen again. Sometimes the person is like the battery to the equipment, to like the toy behind me.
Yeah.
Marshall won't talk without a battery. When I put a battery in, he starts talking, right? So sometimes the people are the conduit, the battery, and when they get into that situation, depending on traumatic experiences, I tend to do believe, and the trauma, maybe that is when the interaction of the object and the persons that had it before can have an interaction. In some form or format.
Right, like this house I was citing, the Sylvanus Brown house. I think you could put Becca's doll out, and though I've heard her voice and I've seen her move things, I think you could put out Becca's doll on the parlor table, and you could have a coin and draw a circle and chalk around it on the floor. I don't think those objects would move necessarily. I'd be surprised if they did. However, there was a poltergeist in a vault in Barbados in the 19th century that strong enough to throw around caskets. Actually, the 18th century, throw the caskets around. They were always found in disarray, no matter how they were put away.
Let's catch up and then we'll end it. It's almost 8:30.
We'll have to do part 2 and 3 just to get all these questions answered, or to take a stab at it.
Oh God, we've definitely lost a lot of questions. Well, we caught up actually. Chelsea said, at this point, I'm going to sound insane, but as a child, my great-grandmother gifted me an arrowhead from her father, who said to be full Native American. When I was a child, I remember every time I touched it, I felt a shock through my body. I gave it to my mom to keep in her closet, and it hasn't moved since. I now feel the need to dig it out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, dig it out.
Well, it's there. You're aware of it. You commune with it from time to time. Appreciate it. Bring it out. It could be harmful.
Tammy says spirits do mess with your mind, and we don't disagree with that. I think that in a lot of demonic cases, in a lot of cases of hauntings, if you look at the family, there are certain situations involved, either trauma, adolescence. I believe that, and I was saying this actually at Farm on Round Top Hill. Round Top. Farm on Round Top.
Farm on Round Top. Round Top Farm.
All the Conjuring accounts were people are famously saying from the book and of course the movie, right?
I think I have a little bit about the Conjuring House, and
I know, but I think truly, honestly, is if you look at and of course the Heinzens deal with things, and they but they also seek it as well. They do communicate, but in that same form, if you look at the parents, was it 4 or 5 young girls?
Who formerly owned the five daughters, I believe. Who
all going through adolescence. So I think that has
there were a lot of factors that generated that haunting.
And I think there are a cocktail of things that occur, but I think there are a lot of psychological things, human biology that incorporates to why these hauntings occur. And if you look at a lot of the cases that I specifically done or Carl has done, that is apparent. Trauma, some sort of biological change in the body, certain things that make this happen. And we say this from experience. We don't say this to bullshit you guys. I know some people want ghosts to 100% be real, and we don't discredit that they're not. But there are a lot of natural explanations that you can come forth to before you jump to that conclusion.
I know somebody that kind of spoils the party a lot of the times because she makes
logical, sacred name, and she spoils parties. Everybody loves her, and she's the best person to have at a party.
I'm not saying she spoils people's time. I'm just saying that she has a knack for coming up with. She's very observational. She comes up with something that I hadn't even thought of, and it fits. It makes sense that why this would look haunted. She doesn't not believe in ghosts either.
So I just want. I'm not picking on you, Zan, but I see this is the issue with this field is we've had these experiences. And I'm not saying we're experts, but we've been methodic. Every time Carl and I meet once a week, you think just over dinner and doing podcasts, we have a lot of of
Yes,
we watch a lot of documentaries. We watch a lot of things. We discuss.
We're still educating ourselves.
Yeah, we educate ourselves every day. Zan sees vampires do not need to be invited. That is brainwashing from Hollywood. No, it's not brainwashing from Hollywood. If you look at all vampiristic, if you look at all vampiristic,
no, it is not.
It's not. Hollywood. It's not just Hollywood. All right, because if you read Demonology by King James or read Malefacient Maleficent or any of these other books that came in the 1600s, one of the things is vampires need to be invited in because guess what? They are undead, like a demon, even though not a physical being at all at any point in time. For them to possess somebody or to infest or to oppress, they have to be invited in. They have to be communicated to. They have to be talked to. And when you open that line of communication, that's an act of invitation, people. So yes, it's not brainwashing from Hollywood. That is things you can read from books from many, many years ago before Hollywood is a thing.
Well, there have been cases where a vampire, like a family member, you could say that invitation is implied because they were sisters. They find the apparition of that deceased person sitting at the end of the bed, and they contracted the wasting sickness, the vampire germ.
Yeah.
After that, so there's this fringe of real supernatural.
Yeah.
Contradiction in term, real supernatural fringe of it, and then you could say it was all due to consumption.
Zanzi says I know for a fact. All right. Well, great for you. Katie said, Bloody Mary happened to me when I was 4 to 5 years old. Oldest sister and friends locked me in a basement bathroom. Yikes.
Oh, what friend? With friends like that, huh?
And Elise actually said it. Thank you very much, Elise. She says, these guys spend much time learning, reading, and discussing all aspects of the paranormal with a special interest in the malevolent. Any given day, they are discussing religion, psychology, history, theology, physics, medicine, pointing out the similarities and differences, and that they are contributing to people believing that their objects or their spaces may be haunted. Very true, Elise. Thank you very much. And we love you very much.
Thank you. We do indeed. That is our job. We're trying to interpret. We're trying to find answers. Not necessarily dispense the answers, but we're trying to find them. I think we're going to have to extend our time.
Yeah.
A little bit, you know.
But yeah, actually, this is actually a perfect example.
What you got?
Before we get off, and this will be actually, instead of knocking on the door to say hi, we're gonna knock on the door and say goodbye. Katie said, "What happens if you hear a knock at your front door, open it, and no one is there? Is that considered an invitation?"
Ah, I like it.
Yes, I would say yes, it would, especially.
It's
if
a
you,
dirty trick, but it's a way to get you to invite it in.
especially if you act in communication.
If you open the door, say hello.
Is anyone there?
Yeah. Can you talk to me? Who is it? Who's there?
Who's there? Yeah.
Well, I've had that happen.
Yep.
So definitely, you know, my mother thought it was my late father. We didn't know, but we'd hear the 3 knocks. And my mother would hear it. Open up the door, and I just go up and down the hallway to make sure that nobody had been there. So what it was?
So we have to answer this question, and I'm not laughing at you, but no offense to you, but I've dedicated my life, and Carl's dedicated 47 years to this. So we can have
I started before I was born.
We can agree to disagree. How about that? I'm not laughing at you.
What
but
about a question?
The vampire thing.
I'd like to talk more about vampires with you.
Yeah.
You know, that's good.
Well, she says she's experienced one.
Well, yeah. Please keep this communication going. Get in touch with us. It's
Well,
an area of interest of mine.
David Fritz, and we're going to answer this question quickly. Have a very important question. Why would a being of divine spirit, although fallen, want to possess a being of a lower order other than itself? Well, Lucifer fell because of pride. Pride's a very dangerous thing. If you have pride within yourself, it's not a good thing. Actually, people think, "Oh, I have pride. It's a good thing." It's really not. Pride's a bad thing. It's a very negative.
Pride connotes fragility.
It does.
You know, you have to expound. You have to show off. You have to show yourself.
But the biggest thing, and you can throw into as well, is that the reason that we believe that fallen angels or demons or whatever you want to interpret them as deal with the low order of human is because they are prideful, but they're also jealous that they were only created with spirit.
So that shows they're not too highly evolved in a celestial sense.
Yes, and we are physical and spiritual beings by outlook. So
they're not that more evolved than us. They're just different.
They're different and older, of course.
Yeah.
But I think
if you're taking them literally, you know.
I think, but in that same retrospect, I think that they would possess us and they would deal with us because they want to invoke that we are untouchable, that we are our supreme being. Like humans always tend to think we are almost the number one.
Well, that's why we're Homo sapiens sapiens, self-named.
Yeah.
Man wise.
Man wise. So in that same token, there you go. I think it's because we have that pride, and they want to show us that you really are untouchable.
And if we could end on that note, kind of wrap it up with that note, you know what Mephistopheles said? He was invoked by Dr. Johann Faustus in the play by Christopher Marlowe. Faustus, who has conjured him and sells his soul to him for earthly gain, he says, "Where are you damned?" And Mephistopheles, the devil, says, the demon says, "In hell." Faustus asks, "How comes it then that thou art out of hell?" And Mephistopheles answers, "Why, this is hell, nor am I out of it. Thinkst thou that I, who saw the face of God and tasted the eternal joys of heaven, am not tormented with 10,000 hells in being deprived of everlasting bliss?" And then he says, "O Faustus, leave these frivolous demands that strike a terror to my fainting soul." But of course, Faustus goes on with the pact.
That was a beautiful rendition and a great explanation.
I probably should have put more emotion into it, you know.
It's all right. Well, guys, say goodnight to my haunted dolls, please. My friends. And I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation.
This has generated some good conversation. I love the questions and comments.
Remember, we're very open people. We're here to discuss. And we're willing to hear everybody's opinion on it. And if you do want us out to your location, if you believe you have a haunted object, we will dissect it. We will make sure that either if you want it gone, as in removed, or
we'll examine it.
We'll examine it.
We won't abandon you. We'll come there, examine it, and see what we can deduce, and perhaps be of help. At least we'll be listening to you.
Hi, bye. I think Betty just joined in. But good night, guys. We'll have a part 2 on this, or maybe we'll have another discussion. We won't be on Wednesday. Because we'll be on a haunted boat ride.
Yes, this coming Wednesday. This
coming
being
Wednesday.
Sunday.
So we'll be back. I'm spitting. We'll be back.
Look at that screen.
But we'll be back the following Wednesday. So I hope you guys have a good night and God bless.
We'll talk more about vampires too. I'm willing.
Yes, me too.